Welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast, where we help people to combat the negativity that inundates our daily lives with positive perspective and positive action. Today's guest is Melissa Jones. Melissa is an inspiring girls empowerment coach and highly effective licensed classroom teacher who helps girls learn daily positive habits so they can feel confident in who they are and connect with other girls in empowering environments. She has been motivating and cultivating connections among hundreds of girls and providing families with resources she has created. After struggling with low self-esteem and lack of confidence herself, Melissa now uses her personal transformation and research to elevate girls to live their best life while linking arms in a community centered around growth and empowerment. Melissa has also been featured on many nationally ranked media outlets such as NBC, CBS, Fox, and Forbes for her lessons on positivity, growth mindset, and healthy connections among girls. So please welcome to the show, Melissa Jones. Melissa, welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to talk with you and your audience.
Well, thanks so much. Well, I love the concept because I think today, in today's society, not only young girls, but young people, they need that empowerment. They need that idea that we can achieve things. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, 1,000%. And I'll get to that later. I pour into all young people, the students in my classroom. Really where it started for me was, really up until I was 8 years old, I had pretty good confidence. I would say I was living kind of a blissful childhood. And I lived on a street where I had friends, I had a best friend across the street. And I just have memories of just feeling so carefree. And at school, I played with kids at recess, no problem. And I just never really doubted myself, although I went through typical kid things. And then our street started getting kind of dangerous in my parents' eyes as I was going into that 8 to 9 year old that summer.
Right.
And so they decided to move us to a suburb. And so we lived in Indianapolis,
Okay.
either way, but we moved to the suburb and everything changed for me. The neighborhood was different. It was, there was one girl who lived nearby, but she was a tomboy. And I would do sporty things, but I still played with Barbies and I still did, typical girl things. And so I started feeling kind of some shame in that because she didn't like those things. And so I had never really met someone who I didn't click with immediately, really, because I've always been I can get along with any type of person.
Right.
And so I think that shook me a little. And so then fast forward, just all through school, I just had issues with just feeling good about being myself without judgment. And as I went into even young adulthood, I had these moments of people doubting me. And I had a school counselor in high school who told me that I really shouldn't bother applying to go to college, even though I got decent grades.
Right.
And a geometry teacher who told me that if I couldn't visualize things, that I might as well just work at McDonald's. No offense to anyone who would work at McDonald's, because I know there's also opportunity there, but it was just like, I had these moments where it just kind of reaffirmed my own belief that I wasn't enough. And so I had a good core group of friends, growing up that I found, you find your people, and I'm still friends with them to this day. And then going into my 20s and 30s, still, again, I always would just go back and forth to that, that doubt. And then ultimately I gained a bunch of weight when my dad was diagnosed, surprisingly, with glioblastoma, which is a very aggressive brain cancer.
Right.
And we were just shocked. My dad was always very healthy. Like, he ate flaxseed on his oatmeal. Like, he was adamant about taking fish oil pills and telling me about all the things I needed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I didn't really handle it in the best way. I think sometimes when hard things happen to us, we don't really know how to handle it. And so I gained a bunch of weight. I drank way too much. And I was just lost.
Right.
And I remember one day I was shopping actually with my mom at Target, and I was trying something on. It was like the three-way mirror moment. And so I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, what has happened to me? And so I went on this journey of finding fitness and finding health and learning about healing foods. And ultimately, there is a connection. I started really learning about personal growth
Yeah.
through my mentor. So Danette May is, one of my like original personal development people. And really, although she was teaching me about fitness and how it doesn't have to take hours a day, and she was teaching me about foods that heal your body, she embedded positive affirmations and little tips and tricks you could do to believe in yourself every day and to join this community of women that was really supportive. And so I saw my life transform. I dropped 50 pounds. I healed my body literally from the inside out. And I had this huge epiphany and huge aha, like, oh my gosh, I can help girls, and it's weird because people are surprised because I went through this such a hard thing with my dad, but I was actually healing myself at the same time.
Right.
And then ultimately creating an organization to help girls. So that's the story behind how it all came to be.
And it's always interesting because we seem to go through the valley before we, if you, like you said, heal yourself, heal, whether that's mental, physical, whatever it may be, to get through that scenario. We realize we're stronger than that scenario. And you've done that. And thank you for being a teacher, teaching our young people. I can tell you would be a fun teacher to be in class with the affirmations and the positivity and the attitude you have about learning. I think that's important. And how did that grow? I mean, obviously you realized you could help young girls do that. Being a teacher, you have that ability to help them. And how does that integrate into the classroom of what you do?
Yes. So I had that idea and I thought, all right, I'm going to try at lunchtime to just really pour into girls and really be intentional about the issues that I see them facing, which is friendship and being unafraid to raise their hand, and just facing those like fears of other people's opinions. And that's really what in 4th and 5th grade, they start really noticing is the way that other girls treat them, and they want to be accepted by everyone. And if someone doesn't like them, they think something's wrong with them. And so just helping with that and like sibling things. And really, I just started teaching them about mindset and about how you can do one little thing every day that can help build your confidence, and how if you have negative thoughts, instead of let it, spiral like I call it a negative spiral, a tornado.
Right.
You can write it out and rip it up. Yeah.
Right. That's a good one.
And I modeled. Yeah. So I would model like how that happened to me, and show like, how do you release it? And so, you can write it down and rip it up. And they loved that. And I was very vulnerable with them. And I think that's part of the power in it is like, okay, these are negative thoughts that I've thought about myself. And I didn't make them read theirs aloud, but I wrote it down and I said, okay, here it is. I'm ugly. I'm fat. I'm not smart. I don't have any friends. Whatever. I mean, literally, not for dramatic effect, but I filled a front and back page and I showed it to them. And I was like, these are the thoughts that have crossed my mind. And they're like, what? Like they couldn't believe it. And I was like, yes. And so then what I really try and do is, and there's a creative piece too that we do, but I really try to be intentional about those universal things that we all face, which is getting in your own head and worrying about what other people think, and perfectionism, and, procrastinating really simple things and making it way harder, or creating your own stress, where stress can be like pressure can be really positive, but if you see it as stress, it has like the opposite effect. So I pour into not only my girls, but in the classroom, I teach them about, I really preach to them that it's the easy way out if you give up. Because, okay, if a math problem is hard, it's supposed to be if you're learning it for the first time. Like everything is not supposed to be easy in your learning and in life. And I think sometimes people are so paralyzed by hard things, whether it's like, oh my gosh, I ate those chips, I'm so unhealthy. And you start this like whole thing in your head, and it's like, okay, you ate the chips. Don't eat them like that all the time. It's like,
exactly.
Forgive yourself. It's like, so I just transfer it into situations that kids can relate to, boy or girl. And then, girls just think of things a little differently. And I think need that extra little push of support, just historically knowing what it's like growing up as a girl. But I still equally pour into my boys just as much in the classroom.
Right. And it's interesting because those things you mentioned, those are things we still have as an adult. Okay, I
Yes.
may not be good enough. That fear will
Yeah.
cause procrastination. Oh, I might not do this, or I
Yes.
might not be that, or we what
Yeah.
if, woulda, coulda, shoulda. No, we can't. We need to get things done. And it's interesting you mentioned that they're doing that at such a young age. I mean,
Hmm.
that's a lot of stress on a young kid.
Yeah.
You don't need that. Like you said, play, enjoy things. And I think our
Yeah.
society has groomed our children of when you're in first grade, imagine what college you're going to go to. Well,
I
why?
know.
I'm to
I
learn how to do the
know.
ABCs. I'm learning how to write my
I
papers. I don't need
know.
to worry about college. I just want to,
Yeah.
what's Joey doing
Yeah.
over there that maybe we can have fun at lunch or whatever.
Yeah.
We got to take that stress away. Do you integrate, it sounds like you integrate that into what you do. Do you do that?
I do. I do it in everything I do, literally. They will tell you if you walked in my classroom, they would tell you all of our mantras. They would tell you
Cool.
what I expect, the way I expect them to think. And I always say to them, what kind of place do you want to be in? Do you want to be, and this goes for adults too. It's like who you surround yourself with. They always say the five people you surround
Yeah.
yourself with, determine who you
Mhm.
are. And so it's like, okay, I want to be one of those people for the kids who are motivating and positive and inspiring. And it doesn't mean we have perfect days all the time, but if you're in a place where people complain and put each other down, or it's like cutthroat
Yeah.
competition or whatever, that's not the place you want to be. You want to be in a place where if someone fails, the people don't rub it in your face, or they encourage you. And we clap a lot in the class. And when someone says something negative out loud, I teach them stop and flip. All right, stop and flip that. How can we look at that as a growth? Okay, you don't know it right now. You are
Yeah.
going to get it. And so I even have them
Cool.
at the top of their tests write encouraging notes to themselves.
Wow.
And I've given bonus points for it before, just for motivation. Like, I'll give you a bonus point. Not, I don't
Yeah.
always do that, but I always say, like, write yourself a note.
Yeah.
You are your biggest cheerleader. And I also teach them that, other people aren't always responsible for lifting you up. You have to be your own person who lifts yourself up. And sometimes that can be really hard, but it's like, you know what? Focus on
Yeah.
one good thing about your day.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things that I do, and I think adults and your listeners can do this too, is I have them now. I do gratitude in a gratitude journal every day. That's part of my
Right.
morning routine.
I do
But
too.
I have them. Do you? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
magic, isn't
Yeah.
it? And it helps you see the good. And so every week I have them write down on a note card, nothing fancy, 5 good things that happened in your week.
Right.
And then I make them come up and tell me about it. And it creates this conversation. It's like, you know what? If you want to write down that you had a delicious ice cream cone, go right ahead and we'll talk about your favorite flavor. Or, it's funny, even the format that they'll do it in is their own style. Like, we all have our own style. Some of them will say, on a Friday, they'll remember on Monday this, on Tuesday. I'm like, how do you remember what day it was? Like, I couldn't, mine are like sporadic, but it's
Yeah.
like, wow. And so, yeah, it's one of my favorite things we do. And even the reluctant kids, I have one boy, and I'm like, okay, come on over. And he's like, oh, I'm like, you can do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes he'll just want to show it to me. I'm like, say 2 of them out loud to me.
Yeah.
Because I want him to hear it,
Yeah.
not just write it. I want him to hear him saying it, because I think it clicks more if you're like, okay, I actually understood these fractions today, or I got a home run in kickball, or I cheered someone up when they were, whatever, or I
Right.
scored a goal at soccer, whatever it is. So yeah,
Yeah,
so I think
they
anyone can
learn
do that.
that multiple ways, that auditory, kinesthetic,
Mhm,
and that's
mhm,
80% of the learning, and then it, like you said, that goes back into their mind, so they continue that pattern as they get
mhm,
older. You're just
mhm.
building that society we want for tomorrow, that positive society, that positive growth, that
Exactly.
people can continue to get through what they need to get through. And it's not that,
Yep.
it is that self-talk. I think that's very important. Like you said, that
Mhm,
that gratitude of every day we can be thankful for something. It doesn't have to be
mhm.
anything complex. I mean, I'm thankful
Yeah.
I woke up today. It's a
Yeah.
simple thing. But okay,
Yeah.
if I didn't, things would be a lot different for my family today.
Yeah.
And I get to have a clean slate of whatever I want to do today. Make it a great day. I can make it a bad day, but it's my clean slate as soon as I get up, and I'm thankful for that. So those simple things are very important because it does set your mind. Because as we know, anything will happen in life, and it can take you off on the rails. We don't need to be in the ditches. Let's stay on the road. It's not always easy, but we can stay there with what you're talking about. Those ideas of gratitude. Where did you? I mean, you mentioned a personal trainer. Is that the only person you've learned that from, or where's some other? Yeah, fill us in on some other ones you've learned it from, because obviously what you're talking about hasn't come from one person alone.
Yes, it has been multiple people, major, influencers. So Lori Harder is always in my ear. She is an incredible influence on my life. I listen to her podcast religiously. And, Rachel Hollis has had a turn in my ear, and Trent Shelton. And so, multiple people, Brendan Burchard. And I mean, just influencers who have given me little seeds, I would say, that have planted the idea in my mind. And it's just affirmation that it's working and that it's worth it. And the people I'm working with right now, Chris Winfield and Jen Gottlieb, they believe in that wholeheartedly. And they believe, that the extra mile is never crowded. Right. And so I love that philosophy. It's like, oh my gosh, yes. What can you do to help others? And so they always say that when they go the extra mile, and they model that all the time in gratitude, to show someone else gratitude even, and to just show that kindness and reach out to someone else, that ends up being a lot of times the most powerful connection that you make. And it's not because you're not doing it to get something. Right. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and it's living gratitude. And one thing that I've learned from them too is sometimes at the end of the day, you can lay in bed, and whatever your routine is, whether you journal or you just lay and just kind of listen to music or whatever, we all have a routine. But I sometimes, if I'm spiraling at night, because I have so many ideas for what I want to do, and like so many things, as we all do, right? And I'll think, oh my gosh, what did I do today? And, I prioritize a few things every day I want to accomplish. And sometimes I get off track, or something takes me longer. And I tend to beat myself up about that. Yeah. So what I do is I either mentally, or I grab a notebook that I keep right by my bedside table, and I just jot down my wins for the day. Yeah. And like you said, it's like the gratitude at night. So it's like, okay, what did I accomplish? Because I was feeling really down one day, and I was like, gosh, I didn't get done my things. But then when I wrote things down, it was like a front and back of what I had done. And it made me feel so much better, because it was like, okay, I didn't do those 3 things or 2 things or whatever it was I was beating myself up about, but look at what I did do. Right. So it's focusing on the good. And I think too, it's what you decide to focus on. Like you said, it's like, you can either decide if you want to have a good day or a bad day. And if you set the intention, you want to have a good day, or you want to see the good in every day, even if it's one thing in a hard day, it changes everything. And that's exactly what I teach my girls and my kids.
And that's what's interesting. People always say, you go into the workplace and you got to realize things, you go there, things are bound to go awry. And especially, in a teaching environment, things will go awry.
Oh,
kids
Lord,
will be sick, kids, and things will happen. Take a minute sometimes and go outside and notice a dandelion growing through the crack on the sidewalk. Notice the green grass. Notice the trees if you have the opportunity to see green trees this time of year. The blue sky. Just take that minute and realize what's out there that's bigger than you that you get to enjoy. And we can all do that with anything we do. And you're doing that, helping them to see that in a young age, that idea of writing down those things and journaling that's a great habit for them to start that appreciation, start that gratitude, start to see they have these skills. Because I remember talking to a group of high school students, and one girl was talking about fashion designing, and mentioned to her how she could do it, and that she could, achieve that. And she came up to me after the presentation and said, I've never been told I could do it. And I was like, isn't that what? Oh man. And it made me feel huge, but at the same time, I'm like, no child should be told they can't do something, I know. But some people will say, well, I'm just telling them the reality of things. The reality is we can all do anything we want. how we're going to
Yes.
get there is the key. And if we have
Yes.
the determination in our mind and our heart, there's not much that can stop you. So
Yep.
I think that's important to reiterate with kids that, you may have to overcome some steps, and that's fine. You don't
Yes.
climb a mountain
Yes.
by jumping to the top. So,
Yes.
we can all do this, and it sounds like you're doing a great job, inspiring the young girls to be able to do that. So thank you for being able to do that. What are
Thank you.
some other things that you could help our audience, not only as adults, but maybe for their kids, some ideas you could give them for this type of encouragement and growth?
Yes. So I think having that intention, even if it's like at the dinner table, just simple things like we call it our woo of the day in my family. It's kind of a weird thing that we came up with. Like we're always like, woo, what was your woo? And we
That's
started a
fun.
long
That makes
time
you
ago.
laugh.
Yeah.
And the teenagers
Sometimes
are
they're like,
just
they
going,
look
they're
at me.
rolling their eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, completely. Like my 12-year-old right now is like,
Really?
but
Yeah.
he still does it though,
Good.
and so whether you get an eye roll or not, if you have
Yeah.
teenagers, it's still very important. And so I think too, us modeling that kind of thinking, even if it's very simple like that, because kids, no matter how old they are, they pick up on what you focus on. And it doesn't mean, again, that you have to be perfect and that everything has to be unicorns and rainbows, as my son always says.
Yeah.
But although I do have a little sign that says BRB, riding unicorns and hopping over rainbow or whatever. It's like that saying. But it's like, if you do little things like that, and it's finding creative ways as kids get older to communicate with them. So like for me, my son, as he's gotten older, we've always had these little pockets of time where we have these conversations.
Cool.
And for us, it's usually been, it's going to sound weird, but in the bathroom, not while he's going to the bathroom, but when he was younger, it was like bath time.
Right.
So it's something about that environment of me spending quality time with him and like the warmth of the room or something. And then as he's gotten older, he might talk through the shower curtain to me. And I don't hang out in there while he showers, obviously, but he'll call me in every once in a while and just tell me something about his day. And I think, I don't know, I get a lot of ideas in the shower. So I think because you're still, you get those ideas. And so whether it's there or in the car, we have a lot of conversations in the car, and they're not even deep. I mean, it starts out as talking about something in sports or something in a video game, and then pretty soon he's telling me about this girl he likes, or he's telling me about this kid who made fun of his mask. And and just little things, or like bedtime, he wants to tell me like, Mom, this has been really on my mind. And they're not long conversations necessarily, but they're just these little windows of opportunity. And another thing that we've done to communicate, and I tested this on my son, so it works for a boy or a girl, and even, spouses could do this too, is to have what I call as an interactive journal. So basically you get any kind of a notebook and you write back and forth to each other, kind of like pen pals, but you do it in your house. Yeah. And it can be literally, I wrote about my workout. Like it was not like, tell me all of your worries. It was nothing like that. It was like, hey, I had a great lunch today. Here's what it was. Or did you, this episode of The Office was hilarious. Remember when this happened? It can be anything.
Right.
And then what you do is you write back and forth to each other like pen pals, just once a day. So we decided on where we're going to keep the journal. So for him, he wanted me to put it on his pillow. So at night, I would write back to him and he would bring it to my bedside table. And so he would deliver it to me at night, and then I would redeliver it like in the morning.
Right.
And so then I didn't think he would do it, honestly, because I teach this to my girls.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to test this. And he totally did it.
Wow.
And he talked about things that I didn't. He asked me about my workout, and because I had started a new one, and I thought he could care less. And I like told him about all the things I was doing, and then he talked about, whatever. So we filled a notebook.
Wow.
And he asked me like a couple weeks ago, like, are we going to do that again? And so it's like, really, a 12-year-old boy? And he's not like a boy who would really say he wanted to do that. So little things like that of connection points, are important. You could write down your good things or your gratitudes or whatever you want to do.
Right. Well, and that's a good start because it gets the conversation going. That's really cool, though. That's a neat idea.
Yeah.
Great.
And then if something did come up, they could put it in that notebook instead of it being such a heavy conversation to have, because sometimes kids don't know how to bring up, like, if they have a question about sex, or if they have a question about drugs, or if they have a question that's heavy and they don't really know how to bring it up, they could write it.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't be as public. Or, I mean, obviously you want to have I have the policy that he can say anything, or you hope that they would want to bring up anything, but those tend to be like big conversations, or smoking or whatever, they wonder about those things. And I mean, he's even brought up things about gangs, and he doesn't even go to a school that would have a gang, but like they think about all that,
and they're
they're
to
curious.
it through the media,
Yeah.
and it's,
Yes.
yeah, we need to be able to understand those things that are on their head, on their heart, and we're getting the same thing, only we can deflect it or defer it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
yeah, that's an interesting realization too, that we need to realize they're seeing the same thing we are. And it's a lot different for them, a lot heavier for them, because it's bigger concepts they may not understand yet. And
Exactly.
just being open to those type of conversations to try to help them and explain it.
Yeah, totally. And that would be more what I do with my own son, not in my girls groups. Like, I mean, if an issue would come up, I know how to handle it because of my teaching experience, but I definitely would defer to the parent if anything,
right.
like crossing the line ever came up.
Yeah.
Like we definitely, it's more about creativity and applying those positive habits. So
that's awesome.
Just wanted to preface that.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. In today's society, you got to make sure we're on the right plane.
Yeah.
Well, Melissa, where can people find out more about what you do in your website and so forth? Where can they find you?
Thank you. Girlspositivityclub.org and Girls Positivity Club on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's all very consistent, easy to remember.
And we'll make sure we have that in the show notes so everybody has, the format of that. They'll see the website in the show notes. So we'll definitely have that for them. But I just want to say thank you for what you do. Thank you for your service as a teacher. Our youth are our future leaders. So thank you for that. And thank you for what you're doing, because it does make a difference in our society. It will make a difference in the future of these kids. So continue the great work, continue what you're doing. I really appreciate you being here on the Encouragement Engineering. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I've loved it. You're an amazing host, and I love what you're about. And I think we just keep encouraging each other, and there are just those little things we can all use.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
You take care. All right.
Thanks. You too. Okay. Bye-bye.